We are back. We are back. Pro Wrestling Inside Now. I'm Brett West, along with Jack Lord. Rodney is under the weather.
The truth is now we're just out here telling the truth. Rodney was the only one of the three of us that couldn't make bail.
True. This is true. Yes, we said we wouldn't be on Facebook, but we're on Facebook because the things that we were going to talk about. We're going to forgo these this week because so much stuff has happened in professional wrestling just in the last week, and especially since we've been gone. So we're going to be on Facebook a couple of weeks because we want to talk to the people on Facebook and YouTube about what's going on today, Jack. I believe we have heard off of Ricky Morton's Facebook page and Ric Flair's about Jerry the King Lawler. Do you know any more information about that?
There's not been any updates since about noon, except that he has gone through surgery successfully, but there has been no prognosis coming out of that. But we hope that he's going to be fine. Now, this is not Jerry's first brush. Of course, we all remember, I think it was 2012 when he had the heart attack on air. And then I believe it was 2018, he suffered a stroke. And now another one, he was at his home in Florida when this happened, either this morning or late last night. I'm not sure which. But our prayers go out to Jerry, great guy. Certainly at 72 years old, and I'm telling you, I turned 64 in a few weeks. 72 is not old, folks. So I hope Jerry gets all right.
In 2018, I read a story today. In 2018, I believe the reason he had his stroke at that point because he was with his young girlfriend. Am I correct about that? Or
I seem to remember that.
Yes. So maybe this was the maybe this was one of the same things with Jerry the King Lawler. Hopefully he is well, and we hope he's doing well. Something else, Charlie Norris. I had just heard about that right before Richard Hood sent me something about Charlie Norris. What did you hear about Charlie Norris? I know he passed away.
I haven't read a cause of death. He was 59 years old. Let me look at my note here. February 6th, he died, 59 years old. Which again is way too young. Charlie had been working as a fitness instructor for several years, I believe, on the Indian reservation where he grew up at. So in Minnesota. So it's pretty sad. Charlie was one of those guys who I wish could have got a better push. I also understand because he was a natural athlete. He was a great athlete, but he just never would get himself in that serious shape that they wanted. And when Bischoff came in, he pushed him out the door. And Charlie turned around and successfully sued WCW for breach of contract, and I think was awarded $50,000 in the end of it. But his career didn't go much farther than that.
Charlie was a nice guy. I met him at World Championship Wrestling. I always enjoyed talking to Charlie, and we tried to get him in WCW to kind of use him in a $1 million man type of gimmick. That he didn't want to be wearing the headdresses, and he didn't want to do that because he was a businessman, and we wanted to put a suit on and he loved the idea. We just could never get anybody from WCW to look at.
Well, an interview he gave, he talked about going to WWE, WWF at the time, to be interviewed for the position that was ultimately given to Tatanka. But Jay Strongbow was the agent in charge, and he was wanting him to do the full gimmick like he had done all those years, with the war chops and, and all that kind of stuff. And he just told him, he said, man, I can't do that. He said, that demeans my people. And he said, I won't be a part of that. He said, I can be a strong Indian character without being a caricature of what you're asking me to do.
Yeah, we talked to him about that, and that's the reason we said, you come out and laid that stuff down. And says, "Hey, I'm a businessman, and I'm a successful businessman," and we want him to be a heel. And we pitched the ideal to Ole Anderson. We pitched the ideal to Dusty Rhodes when he was there, and you just could not get him to understand where you wanted to go with that because he didn't want to do it, and we understood that he wanted to do it because he would work the B towns, which at that time it was called D towns, developmental.
Yeah.
And he would work those. And we tried because I thought he was a great wrestler and
Yeah.
had great attitude, great, just a good old guy. And they just nobody wanted to really sit down and talk to him.
And you got to hand it to him. He stood up for what he believed in, even though it cost him a big career. He was a man of principles.
Leaping Lanny Poffo passed away.
Yeah.
I had talked to him maybe I don't know maybe 3 months ago. I was asking him a question about somebody, and I can't remember the guy's name. It was somebody that that trained his father, and I can't remember what the guy's name is. And I asked him if he was a good worker and who he was, and it was a good friend. And we went back and forth, and it just surprised me because he just in New York.
He was. He had done an appearance the day before, and had posted pictures of being out on the town and taking pics with fans, and looked really good.
James Brown just said something I saw on Facebook, something about Lawler's speech is affected and feeling on right side. Also, today, Buzz Sawyer died on this day, 1992. A lot of people, on our YouTube channel, Buzz Sawyer videos, anytime we put a Buzz Sawyer video, it's the best viewing video. I think people kind of look at Buzz Sawyer because he was a little wild, but one of the great wrestlers.
Well, the thing about him to me was always in our industry we want to appear legitimate, and there's been a ton of legitimate guys in there. I don't think anybody was more legit than him because he did not care to fight. He would fight at the drop of a hat. He could wrestle. He could do it all. He got off track with a lot of stuff and cost himself his own career. But he would have been a force in this business for years to come if he had stayed on the straight and narrow, more or less. But a heck of an athlete, heck of a character. It was all him 100% of the time.
It was a character. He was a character in and out of the ring. Our father, Ronnie West, he had a problem. He had a problem with Buzz Sawyer a couple of times because he didn't do what he was asked to do. And I remember Ole Anderson had a talk with Buzz and said, Buzz, if Ronnie says it's raining and the sun is out, I want you to just go ahead and go get you an umbrella and just go outside with it. Because whatever he tells him, I want you to do. I don't think he ever did it, but still, it's Buzz Sawyer for you. But had great. He had some of the greatest matches I've seen, and some of the worst.
Yeah.
He just, he never had a in between. They were either great or bad. That's just the way Buzz was. Jack, what else is going on? That's about the.
Well, we also lost Sodbuster Kenny J on February 2nd at 85 years old. Kenny's pretty much his entire career was spent in AWA. He was trained there. He was sometimes elevated as far as mid-card, but he was mostly an enhancement guy. But he was there forever and a day. He and Jake Milliman were a pretty consistent tag team up there. I mean, they put everybody over, but they knew they could put those two guys in there, and whoever was in there with them could have great matches, and they knew how to build people. So, I don't remember watching just a whole ton of Kenny J matches, but what I remember seeing was, he was pretty good at what he did.
Anything else? Because to be honest with you, that was a couple of things that I read today I have been just, once I came back from the cruise, I have been swamped on trying to pick up and make sure I know what I'm doing on a daily basis. So,
okay, well, we have, to everyone's total surprise, I'm sure, more lawsuits being filed against Vince McMahon coming back to the WWE. Some of the grounds on some of these lawsuits come on the basis of what they're claiming is corporate malfeasance and the way that he made those payoffs out of the company money, regardless of whether he pays the company back out of his personal money or not. The fact was he treated their bottom line like it was his slush fund to dip into, and it was not. And also, flagrant disregard for corporate governance, which means he knew the rules of business when you're a publicly owned company and yet went completely against them and, cost, may cost shareholders down the road with his actions. But also, New York City law firm Pomerantz is seeking shareholders to sign up with them for a class action lawsuit against WWE because of Vince's reinvolvement. And that's the whole thing. If Vince had stayed away, everybody was happy. If you're going to sell the company, if Vince could have sat at home and just said, okay, y'all sell it, get the most money you can. I'll talk behind closed doors to people that I know. And then when it's done, I'll just sign off of it. But he had to make a spectacle of it. And that's what made everybody mad. So here we go.
Why, I guess the question has to be, why did he come back? Was it because his ego couldn't keep him away? Because when he came back, I think he got rid of almost all the people who may have opposed him.
He did. He certainly did. He fired several members of the board, brought people back to the board who had been in support of him before. None of this was handled, I'm not even sure it's handled in a legal way, but it surely wasn't handled in the right way, regardless. And it's like Vince just doesn't care. It's like, hey, WWE's mine. I built it on my own, and nobody's taking that away from him. No. He was great at what he did, but there comes a time when you have to realize that life is passing you by, and it's time to step back and enjoy it. And Vince doesn't know how to not be in business, I don't think, and I think that ate at him. I think it also ate at him because Stephanie and Paul were doing much better than him because profits were going up, ratings are going up. They I forgot what the end shareholders meeting was at this last time, but everybody was happy. And then Vince comes back in to try to stir the pot up. You can see in his head where he's going, well, they can't outdo me. Well, pal, they were.
So, what's so sad about that is he, and this has happened. This has happened a lot. This has happened a lot in the wrestling business. If it can't be me that books it, if it can't be me that makes it draw, I don't care if it draws or not. And I think that has been the egos have been the downfall of wrestling for years. The territories with all egos, they wouldn't even work together. Territories wouldn't even work together. I mean, they couldn't even figure out what they're going to eat at the NWA convention. So, they couldn't even come up with that. So it just makes no sense. WWE, I did see this. 2022, $1.3 billion is what they ended up making a gross of this year. Now, I don't know what profit margin that is, but I did see $1.3 billion. AEW way away from ever being able to achieve of that. Now, I don't know what will happen, Jack, and maybe you've read about it. What's going to happen now that Vince McMahon is back? He is back in charge, basically. What's going to happen now with all the sponsors and the television rights? What's going to happen with all that?
Well, all those are up, the television rights next year. And that was Vince's way of justifying coming back in because he didn't feel like anybody could get the best deal that he could get because he was more experienced in that. And maybe a few years ago, that might have been true. But Stephanie was doing great business, had a lot of respect from the business community that her dad never had because of the way he does things. But, it all hinges on really who they're going to sell to. Now, if Saudi Arabia, who is still in the running, if they buy it, I don't know that we're not going to see the end of WWE in America.
Yeah.
I just don't think companies here are going to support that. I believe it would turn around instead of USA Network paying them for programming. The Saudis would have to turn around and pay USA to put the product on, or some station like that.
Yeah.
But it's just bad business. It's just bad, and I don't know why he can't see that. Now I heard that Comcast, and this is just rumored, but that they are kind of out of the running. They're not a deal could still be reached, but I don't think they're wanting to pay the full price that Vince wants. So, and I don't know what that is. I haven't heard a number. Somebody, I've heard anywhere from 5 to 8 billion, and it would probably be worth that.
Yeah.
But right now, the leader is, I think it's Endeavor that owns USC, and that they are the kind of the front runner right now. But at the end of the day, when all this negotiating's done, it's whoever cuts the biggest check. That's all Vince cares about.
Yeah.
He's going to take those billions of dollars that he profits off of that, and he's going to go away, and he doesn't care what happens to WWE from that point on.
No, it's like if I can't own it and run it, then someone else can, and good luck. And they're gonna, it's so sad because the majority of people that was out. Think about wrestling itself. The only wrestling organization that is successful and has been successful is the person who still had wrestling knowledge. If you look at any other wrestling company, without that person who grew up and knew about the business, that was taught the business, it's not been as successful. WWE is like, what's going to happen to it when you get rid of a Vince McMahon? And I don't know that Stephanie wants to do it. And I don't know that, I'm pretty sure Shane doesn't want to do it. So unless Triple H wants to stay on, and maybe he doesn't. I mean, they've made their money. It's not like they have to make money. Then what happens in that instance if, okay, they put Joe over here or another Jim Herd over somebody and they have to listen to this guy? They're not going to stay. They're not going to stay long because it's not like at that same time where the wrestlers did stay because they only stayed because they didn't make the money that they had made. Triple H had made money. Shawn Michaels made money. They, maybe Road Dogg probably didn't make that kind of money, so he may stick around. But I don't think they were gonna. I don't think they're gonna listen to somebody come in there and tell them.
No, I don't either. And you and I both know that the only business that you can equate wrestling to in a certain way is the circus.
Yeah.
They kind of run on the same principles in a lot of instances. But if you're not in this business, if you're not in the circus business, and the circus business has showed us that people who knew what they were doing, and yet most of the circuses are out of business, especially the big ones.
Yeah.
So that's not unforeseeable to happen to wrestling if you completely turn it over to a corporation that does not understand the basic needs. When they start worrying about every complaint that comes up, well, I don't like the fact that guy spit chewing gum, in the floor on the way to the ring. So we fire him. And because, I'm not joking, it'll come down to that.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw with WCW, who had some of the best wrestlers on their roster and hundreds of them, and yet couldn't stay in business.
Yeah.
Because corporate kept stepping in, telling them what they could and what they couldn't do. I don't agree with the way AEW's ran per se, but I will give Tony Khan the accolades that he at least goes out there, and I mean, certainly we know he's doing what he wants to see, but that limited audience he has, what he's drawing, what the ones that are buying tickets and watching on TV, that's what they like too.
Yeah.
So he shoehorned himself in there quite nicely. Now, can he grow? I don't know. I took about 4 months off from watching the product, but I've started back the last month watching the show, and I'll give him credit again. Now, not every show's been good, but at least on every show, there has been at least one match that I have thoroughly enjoyed. The majority of them, I have, had my cell phone and, looking at something else just to pass the time. But there has been some pretty good stuff on there. 1-2 matches each show. Now that's maybe not good for a 2-hour show, but considering what they had, I think it's an improvement. Now, is it an overall improvement in the right direction? I don't know yet. I hope it is. I would hope that he knows he's got that set audience. We've discussed this. He kind of caps at 1 million people. But I would love to see him change direction a little bit and try to get, a more wide-based audience. Now, whether he's smart enough to do that, I don't know. He's certainly surrounded by people who know how to do that, but from my understanding, he doesn't listen to them. So,
it's you should always you should always want to move upward, and if you're only staying certain way, you have to change. In this instance, what I see now in the wrestling business is what happened in the territory business, where they did not change and they continue doing the same thing, and they were unwilling. I can remember a conversation that I had with, and we won't even say who the people were, but we had a conversation with them, and I said, "Listen, the wrestling business has what you're doing today has to change. It cannot be the same." And this is what they said. Well, what if it gets worse? And I said, well, it's certainly not getting any better. So let's try it. And then if it worked, the end result was going to be the same. We're going to go out of business anyway.
yeah.
I mean, the end result was the same. And I said, so let's make some changes and let's see if we can go back up, because there was a time that the wrestling business not only was hurt by, you had to have distribution. You had to have a place to put your show. Without a television and a way to market your wrestlers, you're not too much to begin with. You're never going to grow very big. And so that was the territory's problems as well. They had a distribution problem. Tony's got the place to sell it. Just do some stuff different and see what happens. I mean, don't throw the dartboard out there. Sit down and talk with Jake Roberts, which I don't know. I have to say, I don't know if Jake's the one to do it, because Jake Roberts said that Kenny Omega was a better wrestler, and then somebody else, can't remember the other guy. Do you know the other guy?
I do, but it's not coming to me.
But it was Kenny Omega. I know Kenny Omega was in there. Was a better wrestler than Ric Flair, and I'm sorry, but I have talked to Ric Flair. I've sat with Ric Flair. I've took Ric Flair's Rolexes and put them on pockets, and that. I have actually watched Ric Flair, and Mr. Jake Roberts. Kenny Omega is no Ric Flair.
Ric Flair.
And I'm not a Ric Flair fan, but
I'm not a Ric Flair fan either per se. But you cannot take away the greatness of Ric Flair, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But he knew how to connect with those fans. Yeah. Kenny Omega can only connect if he does some kind of big wild spot. Ric Flair could walk across the ring, stop and say, woo, and people would erupt. He's not in Ric Flair's league. I wish he was, because I don't dislike Kenny.
No.
I just think that he's not any different from anybody else. No. You could put everybody just about on that roster, or most rosters, I'm not picking on that EW, but if you put them in a total black bodysuit, mask, and everything, where you could not tell who they were, you would not know who they were.
No.
You know, because they all wrestle the same, they all do the same spots. You know, it's just, I mean, Otis is the only one that comes to mind that you'd know who it was in a black bodysuit.
I think I was on my way back, maybe from the cruise when I read that story, and I had to roll down the window a little bit. I almost threw up a little bit just talking about it right then. I held it back in, but I almost had to leave when I think it was in Atlanta at the time, and I think Jake lives in Atlanta, and I thought maybe I should just go by and slap him. You know, I thought maybe I just need to go back.
Well, he's trying to protect his spot. You know, how many times have we seen that? I don't blame Jake.
No,
you know.
He looks very good. He looks really good.
Now, yeah, he does. Now, if you
with his ex-wife,
maybe I'd heard that, but I don't know that for sure.
Because I think they're doing shows together. Because they used her on WWE television, right? WWF television for a while.
Cheryl, I believe.
Yeah,
maybe.
I forgot about her until I saw the picture.
But yeah, if they would take Jake and let him just age at matches, because there's no better storyteller than Jake Roberts.
Oh.
And if those guys were smart enough to be able to do what he tells them to do, man, he could have them eaten out of that audience's hand. You know, that's what's missing in AEW. They have great talent. I think the talent there, not all of them, but a lot of them, are equal to any talent anywhere in the world on any promotion. But they don't know how to tell stories, and that's not their fault. That's Tony Khan's fault. You know, because he's not teaching them. He's not requiring it of them. And it's almost like the story is left up strictly to the interviews. They don't tell it during a match. And you know, all the matches seem the same for the most part. Daniel Bryan is the only one really who sticks out as having some of the best matches up there.
Yeah, because he tells a story.
Yeah, he knows how to.
Story. Jay Briscoe. I was on my way back, and I think I texted you when I got off the ship, and I asked if Jay Briscoe passed away. I haven't read too much more about it. What happened with Jay?
Head-on collision was not his fault. Another truck hit his truck head-on. I never have heard. There was speculation that the woman that was driving the other vehicle may have been under the influence. I don't know that for sure. So please, this is not gospel. This is just something that I read somewhere and not confirmed. But his daughters were hurt pretty bad. Both of them had to have surgery. One, I think it was the 12-year-old, was paralyzed from the waist down, but she is making progress and getting some feeling back, at least in one leg so far, is the last I heard, and that's been over a week ago. So hopefully, you know, both those little girls are going to be fine. And it was amazing. The last time I looked at the GoFundMe that was put up, they were asking for $100,000, whoever put the GoFundMe up. And the last time I looked, it was over $300,000 that they had raised. Jay Briscoe was one of those guys who everybody in the industry loved. And the fans respected them. He and his brother had some great matches. And I'm telling you, I watched that. The first episode that I'd watched of AEW in quite some time was the night that they brought Mark Briscoe in to main event against Jay Lethal. And I'm telling you, I'm not ashamed to say I was sitting there with tears in my eyes watching this match because it was pure emotion. And it wasn't just because of why they were having the match to honor Jay, but it was also that good. It was such an emotional match. Fans were buying it because it was real. You know, they went out there and they pulled all the stops out. And I'm not saying they did the big wild stuff. They actually wrestled and told a story. And that was the one thing AEW's been missing. But that was so great. And I hope they'll have Mark back on there again before long, because he's got a lot to prove, to himself, and he wants to honor his brother. And I hope he has nothing but the greatest of success.
I always liked the Briscoes, and
Yeah.
I think they could have been good for WWE, but for some reason, I think they did not want to go there because they were going to send them to the school first because they want you to do it a certain way in WWE.
Yeah.
The way it goes. Let's go and talk to the insiders. They are on here with us, Jack, and then we'll talk about some more news that you have. Richard Hood, welcome back, fellows. Thank you so much, Richard. Hey, I get a lot of my information from Richard. Since it was he sent me an interview with Dick Slater while I was, I think I might have been in St. Thomas when I was watching this. I was watching it, and it was so good. Prayers for Jerry Lawler. Yes, we want to pray for Jerry Lawler. One of the greats in wrestling, no doubt. Also, Glenn Shelton is with us, and he says prayers for Jerry as well. James Brown, hi Rodney, get well. Yes, we hope I hope he starts feeling better. It took him 3 days last time he said he had this kind of sickness, so maybe he'll be feeling better by next week. Rick Brooks, hey guys and everyone, rest in peace, Lanny Poffo, Glenn Shelton. That surprised me. I was so surprised because I had seen a post where he had posted to watch. He was with someone watching Wicked. Oh man. Very quickly. I saw on Facebook about Lawler's speech. I think we talked about that already. Congrats to Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble, I guess. I don't know. Did you watch that? I didn't watch it.
I did. And even though it was kind of a foregone conclusion that he was going to win, I still enjoyed the Royal Rumble. I thought it was very well put together. I think Pat Patterson would have been proud of what they did. And while we're on that subject real quick, they did a record 7.7 million gate, which is up 57% from the previous highest gate, which was in 2017, of 4.9 million. They also did a merchandise sale increase that was up 135% over any other pay-per-view or Royal Rumble pay-per-view they've ever done.
Tremendous. I don't know how much stuff costs now. I don't even know how much tickets cost. I'm pretty sure they're expensive now, aren't they?
Well, they had a house show here in Birmingham not too long ago, or it might have been a Raw. I can't remember, but I know they were advertising cheap seat tickets at $20.
So maybe their tickets ain't
so,
as much.
If you're walking down on the floor or even in that first riser bleachers, yeah, you're going to pay. And that's with anything.
Yeah, anything.
I even saw where AMC, I think it's AMC theaters, are going to start charging different prices for where you sit in the movie theater. So,
hey, I was going to tell you, we started about the circus. Ringling Brothers and Bottom Betty Circus will return in 2024. No animals on Ringling Brothers. I don't know how well that'll do for them, but they will have no animals. We know why. We know why they don't want to deal with that.
Well, I hope they're successful.
I hope they are too. They didn't. Field Entertainment didn't go out of business. They were doing other stuff. I think COVID kind of hurt them a little bit because they did all kinds of other shows. Buzz was wild but could wrestle. Yes, he was so good, and that power slam was one of the best power slams I have ever seen someone do. He was just there. I had just seen him so many times, so messed up. He didn't even know where he's at. But other than that, he was good. Cody and Rhea Ripley. Hey, did they have 2 Royal Rumbles?
They did, the women and the men. Rhea Ripley was the first entrant and then won. In fact, she and Liv Morgan started, and then they were the last 2 in the ring. So phenomenal.
Do they make Rhea Ripley too strong? Because isn't she a heel?
She is a heel. And I think it works as a heel of her because she's not huge, but she's bigger than most of the women there. And what they have her do is stuff that it's actually believable against the men. And what I like best about it is that no matter what they do, the men are not touching her. And you know me, I have a big thing about men touching women in any aspect in our industry. I can't, I don't go with that at all. I think that sends the wrong message. But
talking about women, for those of you people who got on and hurt Missy Hyde's feelings, you've evidently not seen the latest photographs of Missy Hyde. So y'all need to go over there and look at that. And then knock Missy Hyde. Look pretty good. I'm telling you, she'll look very good, Missy Hyde. So if you want to check out those pictures, I think she was at some kind of fan fest maybe 2 or 3 days ago. But look very good. Gil said Buds was legit. Knew him well and never had a problem with him, but he was always intense. He was he when he was in Atlanta? He was very intense, but he was one of the wild ones. Him and Tommy Rich both. Buds and Piper were my two favorite heels from the '80s. Rick Brooks, yes, Piper was so good. I think Piper came to Atlanta, and I think that he made Gordon Soley better than he was. I mean, that's how good he was. I mean, he made him because Gordon was kind of getting where he was just there by himself. He wasn't as good as he used to. But when Piper joined him, it's just like they were just so good together. Man, I go back and watch some of them videos and listen to what Piper would do and how he did the commentary. Man, he was so good. Brent, I like your photos in the back. Yeah, we got the Steve Armstrong, Scott Gordon. I'm going to change those photographs here soon, and there's going to be some new ones up there.
I got some posters I can send you.
If Tony Khan buys WWE, which I don't think will ever happen, I don't think they'd ever
sell. I don't.
Will he keep AEW, WWE separate or put them together? I don't think that'll ever happen. I don't know that they'll have the money to buy that.
Now his dad's worth $8 billion, but I can't see him writing a check for his entire worth to buy another wrestling company because the one he owns right now is still not making money. So,
yes, I don't see it. I don't.
And I hope that they can turn that around. I hope they're profitable. I hope they never go away. Because when a company folds, that just means more wrestlers out of work, and I don't ever want that.
I was asked to, while I was off, said, "Hey, would you ever go to WWE or AEW? Would you go do anything with them?" I said, "Well, probably not. No, I probably because I've gotten to an age that I just don't want to take too much crap. So the first crap, I'd be gone. So I don't think I could do it. I don't think.
Well, we proved that we're all too old to put up with crap when we tried to do that last year and started having all the issues with talent that we had because we're just
no, I just don't think
we're just not cut out for that anymore.
No, Dixie Carter's going to buy. They lost a bunch of money. I think like $20 or $30 million or something like that they bought. If Khan buys it, keep it separate. I just don't think it's going to happen, Glenn. No. I really don't. I just don't see it.
I think that's Tony just saying stuff to stay relevant on social media.
Yeah, Vince got enough money to do what he wants and drag it out in court for the rest of his life. Because
and that's the problem is that he would. I think before he let them do anything that he wasn't directly involved in, he would just let the company go bankrupt.
I'm thinking he would.
Because they're not going to touch his personal money.
No. Glenn Shelton said, so Kate passed to Stephanie and said, stole it. He did not steal WWF from his father.
No.
I'm really thinking that Vince did not even grow up with his father.
He did not. I think he was a teenager before he ever met his father, from my recollection.
Yeah.
And then it was only after he graduated high school. I think he went to a military prep school for a while. But then his father brought him into the business, but made him, he didn't give him things. He made him earn every position that he got and made him work his way up. And specifically, he gave him some small area up in the northeast corner of the U.S. where he went up. The ratings were abysmal. The house shows didn't draw, and he basically said that let me go up there and see what I can do with it before we just shut it down. So he went up there, and he, to his credit, turned it around because we know he really does know how to do business. Yes. Maybe not right now, but back then he did. And then when he bought his dad out, his dad didn't give him a discount price on it. He still had to pay several $1 million. And not only that, but, Vince Sr. had several partners in there. And Vince had to promise his dad to give all of them jobs for life, or his dad would not go through with the sale. Which, to Vince's credit, he not only gave those individuals jobs for life, but he gave them jobs that meant something. Pat Patterson, guys like that, they're the ones who helped. Instead of being old school and not willing to change their ways, they went right in there and said, well, hey, if this is how you see we got to keep the business going and I keep a living coming in, then let's do it your way. And here's an idea. And that's what they did.
Yeah, and Gorilla Monsoon was one of those people.
He was.
He had points in the WWF. And
Arnold Skolin was another.
Yeah, Arnold Skolin. So there were so many people, and Vince was the one that owned the majority of the company. So, they were either going to listen to him or he was probably going to buy him out. And Vince was one of the most successful wrestling promoters of all time. And to know, hey, no matter what people don't say about Nick Goulas was a successful promoter. Was he as successful as a Vince McMahon? Probably not. But he was successful. Jim Barnett was successful. But if you probably went down the greatest promoter of pro wrestling of all time, it has to be Vince McMahon. No matter what you want to think about him, he just knew how to change. At one time, Vince did know how to change from time to time. He did change his product a lot. It's just that in the last 20 years, they've not changed. It stayed the same.
Yeah, the thing that put the territories out of business, that's what he was guilty of doing the last 20 years or so. Not changing, not updating, not going with society of today.
Yeah. NWA, AEW, WWE, Memphis, UNN, and others. I'm not for sure what Glenn Shelton was saying. Did we miss something there? Mm-hmm. James Brown, TV changed wrestling. Now they don't give you time to sell or tell a story. I don't know that they do that. I don't think they care what happens. They just want ratings. I don't think they really care. Like you can't sell a pile driver because they demand constant action. I don't know. I don't know if that's it. I don't think that's really it. I think that's the way they produce wrestling, and they don't produce it any different.
I think WWE does a much better way of telling stories than most places out there. Did they do it like they did in the 90s? No. But they still do some storytelling. I mean, when you get to their pay-per-views, every match on there has a reason for being on there. And I think that's been more true since SummerSlam last year when Triple H took over, because he understands the selling of the stories. And I said this last year before we took our break, is I believe in 5 years, the product of WWE of what we see today is going to shift back more towards old school type wrestling, because it has to.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many times that you're going to be able to get by with people getting hurt, doing these big dives and all that, till somebody figures out, hey, storytelling still works. Let's just go back to that more and more. And I think that's what he's doing. I really do.
And hopefully he'll be able to. See, this is where James, this is my thought process. And the reason they do what they did. This is what I've seen and let's just say let's say USA Championship Wrestling, owned by Ron Fuller, Bob Pope. What happened there was Bob Armstrong was booking the territory. He booked it a certain way, a certain style. Well, business was down, so Bill Dundee was brought in. Well, he's there already, but Bill Dundee is wrestling there. Now they give him the booking job. I watched the matches. I saw the matches and could not tell there was any booker. I did not know, and I was there, but I didn't know Bob Armstrong was gone. I thought he just took some time off. Well, I found out Bob got mad because they got rid of him and gave Bill Dundee the booking job. I didn't even know Bill Dundee was booking it. I thought it was still being booked by Bob because it was no different. And I remember him saying, Bill come to me and said, "How am I doing?" I said, "What do you mean, how you doing?" He said, "The booking." I said, I don't see no difference in it. I said, "That's the problem, Bill. You came in and you did the same exact thing that Bob did. You didn't do anything any different. So nobody could tell that there was nobody booking it any different." And when it was, Bill watched it, and that's the way he thought they wanted it, and that's the way he produced it. And he wasn't going to produce it any different. And I love my father, but he would also get into that too of how it was done. It's the way he would do it because he didn't want to change anything. And I think that's the way they're doing it now. It's not that they won't; they just are afraid to make any changes. Whoever writes it, whoever does it, they don't want to make a change. I mean, what do you think, Jack? Is that's where we're at? We're stuck in a rut, and we're unable to change because those people they just want to say, "Listen, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm going to produce the same thing because, well, what if I do it different and it fails?"
Well, and I can see where Triple H would be sitting there, and you've got Bruce Pritchard and the guy that's over all the camera work and all, and and they're saying, well, this is what we did, this is what worked, and it did work, but it kept just like AEW's at now. They had kept, and WWE was not going beyond that 1.4, 1.6 million on Monday nights for a very long time. Now they're doing 1.8, 2.1, 2.2 because there's subtle changes there, and people are anxiously looking at what's going to happen next. Because no matter what you say, Triple H is giving them a little bit of something new every week, a little bit of storytelling that goes a long, long way. And heck, the whole Roman Reigns storyline with Sami Zayn, that is probably the best storyline I have seen in since the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just phenomenal storytelling on everybody that's involved being on the same sheet of music and understanding what they have to do to get that story to work. And that story, I mean, how many matches have you seen Sami Zayn in the last 6 months? Not a lot.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns, next to nothing. And yet they're the hottest guys on the show right now because the story is so well told.
And I understand Cody Rhodes' story is done really well.
I'm telling you, that promo between him and Paul Heyman last night was pure emotion. If you, as a wrestling fan, watch that and you don't get emotionally involved in what they were saying and doing so subtly, I don't know what to tell you. Turn it off, go become a monk, go climb a mountain and stay there or whatever, because that was phenomenal. And they didn't touch each other really. It was just storytelling. It's just words. It was emotion. It was both of them shed tears because they felt what they were saying and being said to each other. And when Paul done that hook at the end that got every ounce of heat back, that was magnificent. It's the best promo I've seen in years.
I have to go see it. I have not seen it in its entirety, but I've heard that it's for old school wrestling fans. It does what that wrestling did in the 70s and in the early 80s.
I'm going to tell you, Cody doesn't rhyme like his daddy.
Yeah.
But his delivery on promos is absolutely perfect.
I'll have to go see that. I haven't seen it. I will watch that the first thing when I get off of here, and that way we can talk about it next week. Arn would be my choice. Yeah, Arn Anderson's there, but I don't think Arn even wants. I think he just.
I don't think so. I don't think he wants it.
I think when you get to a point, and I'm not saying that if I had total control over what they brought me in to do, and I didn't have a guy that says, no, I don't want to do that, and have to argue with him. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that, but the problem is, me and Jack knows this to be a fact. You would, unless you were told, listen, you either do what I ask you to do, or you're fired. I'm not asking. This is the reason why I want you to do that. That wouldn't happen, so that's the reason I know I couldn't last, because you have to have a direction, and I think Paul Heyman, anything he's in control with, there's a direction to it, and it's the reason it's so good. Because he tells a story. You understand? Because think about it, ECW told great stories. From week to week to week, he told great stories, and he would answer things. Paul was a great booker, and I think Paul was a better booker than Jimmy Cornette. I mean, I
agree with that. He wasn't a very good promoter, but by golly, when it come to running actually what you saw on TV or in the arenas, I don't know that anybody has surpassed him, since then.
No, I did great stuff. Walter, how you doing, Walter? Thank you so much, Walter. You have been watching a ton of our YouTube videos. Thank you so much, Walter. Tell people about it. If you're watching, tell everybody about our YouTube channel. We want to grow the YouTube channel this year. We want to grow it and grow it and grow it. And it is our, by the end of 2023, we would like to have 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. That's what we're going after. Now we're growing. Facebook's growing 1,000 every week. Every week it's growing. So by the end of this year, we should have somewhere around 100,000 people on our Facebook. But we want to get at least 10,000 on our YouTube channel. Walter said, let's see, rest in peace, Lanny Poffo. Yes, Glenn Allen. Shelton, he said, rest in peace, Jay Briscoe. I don't know who that is. He just said goo. I'm not for sure what that is. I won't even go to it because I don't know what that means. Walter, rest in peace, Lanny Poffo. Sean Smith, if Poffo passed away down in South America, no, I think
you gotta go to the next two.
Oh, right here. I don't think he passed away in South America though.
No, but he was living somewhere down in South America. He had moved down there.
He was in
Ecuador, yeah, and really was enjoying himself immensely. Had retired down there, so he just flew back, to do appearances and stuff.
Did he die in the United States?
Yeah, he died in New York. Yeah.
All right. But I had seen several pictures of, and when I talked to him about being in Ecuador, and I said, I think I asked him, well, how did you get there? He never really went into a long story of how he got there, but he said he loved it there, and Lanny was a great guy, and I don't think a lot of people realize Lanny had wrestled for many years. He was wrestling in the late 70s. He had been around a long time.
And I find it funny, if you look on his Wikipedia, it talks about his time in WCW. He never wrestled in WCW, but he was under contract the whole time Randy was there because that was part of the stipulation. And which goes to show you how much Randy took care of his family.
Yeah.
But it also goes to show you how ignorant WCW management was not to do something with a guy of Lanny's caliber.
Well, Lanny Poffo and Randy Savage had bought the rights to Gorgeous George. So Lanny Poffo was going to come in and wrestle as Gorgeous George. And for some reason that never happened. And they eventually used a girl in that position, didn't they?
Yep.
Because Randy Savage, I believe it was Randy, he actually got it trademark, copyrighted, so he could own the name Gorgeous George. And Lanny Poffo was supposed to come in He even got the blonde hair and everything, and he was supposed to come in as Gorgeous George. Why they didn't do that, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, maybe I do know. Maybe they would have maybe had a problem with the Gorgeous George family, but I don't think he owned the rights.
Well, George only had an ex-wife.
Well,
I
there
don't
you
believe he had any kids, so
they probably wouldn't have had. Richard Hood said, Jack, nice posters. Your posters are nice
thank
too.
you. There's one from Mexico. There's well, you can't see his head. Luthez behind me, and the actual first WrestleMania poster over here.
Oh, WrestleMania 1. I enjoyed WrestleMania 1. That was so good. And the build up to that, they knew how to build something up. Why wouldn't Vince turn over to Shane? I don't think Shane would.
Shane sold out. When he left 7-8 years ago, he sold all his shares, all his interest in the company. He didn't want it. And Vince did not think Shane had what it took to be the guy that ran the company in the future anyway, because he said Shane was more concerned about being friends with everybody than being their boss. And as we know, I mean, friendship is I've had so many friendships from this industry, and I appreciate every one of them. I could probably have thousands more if I wasn't such a stickler for putting business first. Yeah. But I'm gonna give y'all a little hint here, something secret. Not everybody likes me.
And there was a time that there was no one that liked us. So we were the most hated people because we were very vocal. If you were crap, we told you were crap. That's just all there was to it. And Dad, we got that from Dad, because Dad tell you, he told a guy one time. He said, "Listen." The guy asked him, he said, "How was it?" He said, "Well, let me tell you what you need to do." He said, "This is what I want you to do." I said, "I want you to go and buy you some white tights." And I said, "I want you to take them home. I'm going to get you some brown dye, and I want you to dye those tights brown." And he said, "And when you do that, I want you to put all that on there." He said, "I'm going to give you the name, and I'm going to use a cuss word for the first time." He said, "I'm going to call you the drizzling shit." So that's what exactly was the words that Dad said. He was a very mean person sometimes to people when he didn't.
Your dad was honest.
Yes.
Now he may have used some cutting sarcasm, but as long as he wasn't cussing at you, he really wasn't mad. But I sure have. Heck, I've been on the receiving end of it a few times and deserved every bit of it. But Louis Tilley taught me how to wrestle, but your dad is the one who taught me the business, and everything I do is still centered on that.
He would. I heard him cuss so many people. He cussed a man. He cussed a guy that in Fort Payne, Alabama, one time. You could hear him all over the building. I mean, you could everything. I've heard him cuss so many people in so many different ways. But he understood the wrestling business. He didn't want to do it as it got years later. He did it because that's what he knew. But by 1993, 94, he didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't fun anymore. It stopped being fun. Guys, didn't Gorilla Monsoon on a piece of Puerto Rico? I don't think he did he?
I don't remember him owning it. That's not to say he didn't, but I don't remember that.
Because wasn't it Victor? Whatever that guy's name, Victor, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Carlos Colon, right?
Yeah. I know Carlos was the primary.
Because I don't even think, did the Invader, the guy that stabbed Brody, did he own a piece of that?
No, he was the booker down there, though, for a long time.
So I don't think. I was just in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And a guy asked me, he said, "Hey, I was taping some stuff. I have an actual travel channel that now I've started. And when I go places, I'm going to start taping it and putting it on there." But the guy asked me, he said, "Let me ask you a question." He said, "What, you seem like you're lost." I said, "No, I'm not lost. I'm just taping the stuff around here." He said, "This is what he said." He said, "Well, I can go inside here. If you want to, you can go inside and I'll take you inside one of these places and you can see this place inside." And I looked at him. I said, "I'm not going to do that." And I basically told my wife, I said, listen, I can walk faster than you. So whoever can get away faster is going to be safe. But, if you can't get away, I'm sorry.
I got an opportunity to go to Puerto Rico. The Nasty Boys asked me to go, and I was going to work it out and go. I mean, because you get recognized.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be a good career step. But one of my best friends, as everybody knows, is Bull Buchanan, and he went down about a month before I was supposed to, and he called me like a day or two later after he had left. And I said, well, how's it going? And he said, I'm not there. I said, what happened? He said, well, I got down there. He said, they met me at the airport. They took me to the lowest rent motel place you've ever seen in your life. He said, it was awful. And he said, but I thought, I'm here for 3 weeks. I can suck it up for the kind of money they're wanting to pay me. He said, then I opened the door to the room, and he said there was still the white mark of where a body had been found dead. And he said, I turned around, got a cab, went back to the airport, and paid my own flight back. And I thought, yeah, I'm not going down there.
The same thing happened to Dad. He went there. Dutch Mantel was booking. And he wanted to bring Daddy and a special guest referee there. And actually, he was going to be Dutch Mantel and Carlos Colon, and Dad was going to screw Carlos Colon out of, and Dutch Mantel was going to get like the power of the company, right? So that was the deal that he was going to do. So he goes to Puerto Rico. He flies in there. Dutch Mantel picks him up, and Dutch takes him to that same motel. And Dad got out. He walked around and seen blood spots everywhere. Place just horrible. He said it was horrible, and he said right then and there, I said I found me a cab, and I went down to Old San Juan, which is a pretty nice area, Old San Juan, unless you go up to the La Peria area where you'll get stabbed. So don't go over there. And he was right there. And he called Dutch and said, Dutch, I'm not staying over there at that place. I'll just pay for a room, because he's only going to be there like 2 weeks. And he said, I'll just pay for the room. I said, I'm not going. So he stayed at the Sheraton, and at the time it was Sheraton. There was a casino there. So he said, I'll just stay here. Well, and finally he stayed with Dutch for the whole 2 weeks he was there. And at the end of it, they decided they couldn't do that with Dad, because they said, well, they're afraid he would die and get killed before he even got, because they were going to take him right after that directly to the airport, and he was going to fly out. And they said, I don't know if we'll be able to get you out of here. So they made the decision not to turn him. But and after that, they wanted to. They talked to Dad. Carlos talked to Dad about going in there and booking it. But we talked about it, because Dad said, I'm not going by myself. And then we talked about it. We said, no, we better stay right here in Tennessee. Let's see. I hope everyone was well. Mako, how you doing? It's good to see you. Mako said, we're back, baby. We are back. We won't. Now, I will tell you, so I don't upset the card here, but in April, I'm going to be gone again for a week. Now, I'm only going to be gone a week, but I will be gone a week during that time. But Rodney and Jack will be able to handle that 1 week I'll be gone. I'm going on another cruise, and I'm going on a new Carnival celebration. They gave me a great deal. I couldn't pass it up. So
meanwhile, I'm going to be in the bathtub with one of those little rubber ducky things.
Now, I'm not going to go on another till February. So that's everybody will just hold through that. As if they don't give me a good deal that I can't pass up. Brent and Jack, is there anything changed in today's wrestling? Brent and Jack, if there is anything to change in today's wrestling, what would it be? Michael Barr. Hey, Michael, by the way, I understand you're going to have a surgery soon, so we'll be praying for you.
Well, we discussed it already about going back to more storyline-driven wrestling. I think that's the key. And like I say, over time, to change the bar, not lower the bar, but change the bar back to, what sold tickets all the time. Historically, even from the very beginning, it was the stories that sold those matches when you'd only have 2 matches on a card. but still, you would have the stories of why these two guys were going against each other, in the newspapers. You had writers writing it up. And hey, guys, here's another thing. Everybody in sports, in the reporting, and they knew it was a work.
Yes.
Even back then. So, that's why I don't mean to get off track, but that's why I get kind of a little peeved when people are talking about Vince McMahon killed the business. The business, I mean, when you're a kid, you believe stuff. But if you're a grown person and still believe that, there's stuff still out there. My grandfather was one of them. He believed it till the day he died. My grandmother, on the other hand, was the one who pulled me in the kitchen one day and said, "Son, that ain't real." but
it was in a real way for you to believe it while you watched it.
But every form of entertainment was presented that way at one time. Movies, TV. The only difference now is that Star Wars practices kayfabe better than the professional wrestling industry.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, they have writers on their contracts that you can't talk about the things that go on behind the scenes. You can't spill the beans. And, it's just like in wrestling, it just seems like guys and women can't get to a phone fast enough to let Meltzer or whoever know details.
It's sad, but it's true. It is sad, but it's true. And I think that, we've talked about it. It's about just telling, I think we all understand it's about telling a story. I think if you talk to Ricky Morton, he would say the same. You think it's about telling a story. He never got over because he did the double drop kick with Robert Gibson. That's not the reason he got over. He got over because he was able to tell the story. They were able to do the angle. And they were able, once they did the angle, so they could have a program with each other, whether it be 12 or 13 weeks, then they would get together and they would get with a booker and they would all work together to take that program, work towards that. Everything was to work towards the cage match at the Superdome, the loser leave town match. It was always, and you always built to that. So you knew you were going to end with a cage match. The Midnight Express is going to leave town. Now, during that whole time, we got to make the Midnight Express look like powerful, powerful, powerful people. So when we beat them 12 weeks from now, we're going to mean something. I think that is missing. I don't see that in wrestling now. I think the closest you can get to that would be Roman Reigns. But the problem is Roman Reigns is the heel, and he's always destroying people. So eventually, whoever they get to beat him is going to be over. And that's going to be who that's going to be. I don't know. I don't watch the show enough to know who that could be, but I don't see nobody there they have right now. I think that could be better than Roman Reigns because Roman is so good at what he does. Let's see. What's up with the King Jerry Lawler? He had a stroke.
Yeah.
In Florida, right?
Yeah.
He was in Florida. I didn't even know he had a home in
Boca Raton, I believe. He's had one there for years.
Black Bart said they were talking about Big Dust. I guess he's talking about
during the promo last night.
Let's see. Michael Barr said he's preparing for surgery here in a couple of weeks, and we'll be praying for you, Michael.
I've been there, buddy. Same thing.
Let's see. I have my people subscribed. Get them people subscribed, Mako. Get them subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hey, I've even done a new video just to see how it will work today. And I do a lot of work, so I work a lot. So it takes me a while to get it done. I've been working on it for about a week since I've been back. So I will get a new kind of video that we're going to be starting to do on YouTube as well. Black Bart, Lanny tried to do.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that off air.
Yeah, we can't handle that. I've heard that story. I don't know if it's true or not. Gorgeous George, Randy's manager in valet.
Which I'm friends with her on Facebook, by the way. Sweet girl.
Let's see. We've already handled that.
Already done that one.
John said, "Always liked you, Jack." John Couch. Having surgery in a couple of weeks here. We've already said that too. Michael Barr, Ron West knew the business very well. He did. He did understand it. I think though. I think as you get older, I don't know that you have as much drive anymore. And I think as Dad got older, he just didn't want to fight with people. And I think by the time the Continental Wrestling came along, I think he would probably be. Let's see, what was he in his 50s?
Yeah.
By that time, maybe late 40s. I think even Bill Dudley, I think they were just tired of arguing with people. They just and to not argue with them, they just appeased them. And I understand that. I'm at that point in my life too. I don't want to argue with people either. It's just not worth it. Let's see. Michael Barr. Just do not let the storylines run over too many weeks at a time. Change it. That's true, man. If that thing goes, we're talking about the Freebirds. That feud went on for 2 years, but it drew for 2 years. I mean, that's the thing. I think it once David passed away, I think even the Freebirds, I think Michael Hayes and them kind of seen they couldn't do what they were doing. It was kind of mean of them to do stuff to the Von Erichs after that. And we're gonna do a story on David Von Erich here next week when Rodney's able to return. We're gonna do a story on David Von Erich, and so many people had a lot of things to say. I don't know if any of them was true, but we'll look at what everybody says about that. UC nominees for WWE Hall of Fame. Have they told about them yet?
Possible. It's not for sure, but they're saying Dave Bautista will be the headline. But they're also saying that the Midnight Express will go in. Now, my only concern for that is they only showed Stan Lane and Bobby. So I'm hoping that, bridges can be mended where Cornette can be there, but also so that every member that's ever been in the Midnight Express could be recognized, and I'm speaking specifically of Randy Rose too, who gets left out of all of this, but he was an original founding member. And Norvell Austin. Now, finding Norvell is a different story.
Hey, I ran into his daughter. I didn't really run into her. She texted me or messaged me and said, "Hey, thank you so much for talking to my father." And I said, "Well, please tell Norvell I said hello." She got back and said, "Yes, she did." I always loved Norvell. Norvell was
good.
And they do need to do that. And I think Jim Cornette's been back there, hasn't he? He's done some videos and stuff for Vince.
I'm not sure.
So maybe Cornette always makes people mad. So he don't like nobody. So
but the whole thing is that it was that ensemble. I don't think they would have been recognized as being such a great tag team if it had not been for Cornette being there. And on the other hand, I don't think Cornette could have managed anybody else and could have had that level of success. So it was that lightning in a bottle type thing that even though you had a few change-ups over the years as far as members, the consistency of Bobby and Cornette was always there. And the level of matches was always good. Even with Stan Lane, they still had good matches. Yeah. Maybe only when Stan was on the ring apron, but still.
Dennis Condrey was the brains behind that whole deal. He would
tell
everything.
Dennis is such a good guy too. And he's out making appearances again. So if you see a fan fest and you see him advertised, go see him. He's, he has health issues, but he really wants to connect to his fans again and, get out there and meet him. And I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. Great guy.
Mako, I have to put this on. Mako says, it may sound wrong, but if you use females, have them topless or soft corner right. No, I don't think so. I never liked I love the way they portray the women now in wrestling.
Yeah.
I always thought it was the way they did them. I thought was so disrespectful. to them. That just happened during Vincent Speaks because think about it. Moolah was not treated that way. Judy Grable, they was not treated in that kind of light. Now, I just never liked that. I never.
And let's not forget that aside from WWE, AEW, one of the most successful programs out there today is WOW.
Yeah,
They're doing smash numbers, on how many people are watching them. And it's a good product, old school.
I haven't watched that yet, but I've heard at some points they do 300,000 views.
Yep.
300,000 people are watching at one time.
That's 3 times more than Impact does.
There you go. So
nothing against Impact. That's not my cup of tea, but still.
Glenn Shelton said Jim Cornette did. He inducted the Rock and Roll Express into the Hall of Fame whenever they were inducted. I don't know when they were. I don't keep up with it. I can tell you about some of the things in the 60s. I can tell you, and not because I was around in the 60s, because my father was around in the 60s, and he told a lot of stories. 70s, 80s, around about 1998, I kind of quit watching wrestling a lot. Because I did get into
because the majority of our conversations from that point forward till we started this was, is there anything going on?
I never really did, because once I did the circus, I didn't have time to watch wrestling. So and I did that until 2014, 2015. So I didn't watch wrestling. Jack, anything else going on before we need to?
Well, I would mention. Do you remember Steve Cox?
Yes, I do.
Well, Steve Cox has been arrested for threatening violence and 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. He had been arrested in previous years, in the last few years, for stalking, just all kinds of. I mean, the guy's just seems to be gone off the deep end. Do what?
Didn't he have a tag team partner?
Maybe didn't him and Rod Price?
It may have been Rod Price. Yes. Yeah, I thought they.
And we need to get Rod on here sometimes. He's got some great stories. Another just awesome guy.
I don't think we missed Michael's comments, did we?
No.
I thought we got him in there.
No, we got him.
Anything else, Jack? Because now next week I'll try to get more of what's going on in the world of wrestling. Plus, we're going to talk old school wrestling, because we got a lot of people want to. We're going to talk a little bit about. We're going to go back and talk about Chief Wally McDaniel. We're going to talk about Tommy Rich, and we're going to do 2023. We're going to talk a lot about old school wrestlers. All right, Jack. Anything before we leave?
I think that does us. We missed you guys.
Next week, once again. Same bat time, same bat channel, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Out. Thank you so much. It's glad to be back, and maybe Rodney will be back with us next week, and he may have a rant or two that we've not heard for over a month. So maybe he'll be back with us.
Almost a guarantee.